Okay, a really common exam question is for you to be asked to use map evidence from the map that you're given in the exam to explain why certain land uses are suited to that particular environment. And the land uses will be the ones that you've studied in class, like forestry, farming, tourism, energy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those four as an example, and using this area of Scotland, explain how you would use the map evidence to answer that question. And the question could be worth up to 6 marks. What's really important in this answer is that you give grid references in map evidence to support every point you make, otherwise you won't get marks for it. Okay, let's start with tourism. Why is tourism suited? Well, the first thing you might do is you look for all of the tourist opportunities in the area. They're normally highlighted in blue or symbols marked in blue, and you give some grid references, and then you just explain why this area is suited. So, for example, this area has got a campsite, and you give the grid reference here for this campsite, which would mean people coming to camp in the area would find it easy to find camping. If people were interested in water sports, they could easily do boating at the water sports centre, and you give the grid reference for the water sports centre. There's a golf course here, so you might say that people coming to the area might want to play golf. There's a hotel, you give a grid reference for that, saying this is a place where people could stay. Down here, we've got some tourist attractions like the Falls of Dockard. We know that's a tourist attraction because it's highlighted in blue, so people could come and visit that and would spend their money in the area. We also have an information centre and a folklore centre. So all of these points would be picked out where you give a good reference and then you explain that these would attract people to the area. One thing you'd also want to make sure, because this is a mountainous landscape in Scotland, clearly people would come for walking, and we can see these footpaths here. This is a long distance footpath marked in the diamonds, but if you don't have that, any little footpath on the hillside like this one here would attract people. Likewise, we've got a nature reserve here, so that could attract people interested in birds. So lots of grid references, picking out specific things on the map and then explaining why that would suit tourism. Now let's talk about farming. Why would farming be suited to this area? Well, sheep farming would be suited to the steep hillsides. So you'd give a grid reference for a steep grid square, and you'd say because sheep are easy to navigate on steep hillsides, but steep hillsides can't be used for crop farming because it would be very difficult to get the machinery up and down the steep slopes. Also, because the land is very high, and you might want to say, for example, 650 or 700 meters above sea level, temperature would be colder and it'd be quite wet up here, which means that crop farming would be difficult, but sheep are adapted to that particular environment. Final thing you could say is, because the land's very steep, it's not going to be very valuable, and therefore, because sheep farming isn't a very profitable enterprise, it's most suitable to be done on land that's not very valuable. Right, forestry. First thing you do is you'd give a piece of forestry. You'd give a grid reference, for example, this area here, and you'd say it's suited to this area because trees take a long time to grow, and therefore you need to put them on land that's steep and not usable for anything else, especially pine trees. They take about 50 years, so you don't want them on nice, usable, flat land. Another thing you want to say why this land suits, because conifers can grow on steep land which has got poor soils that you'd expect on a hillside, like we see on this map, and therefore it's a suitable location for them. Another benefit of these trees being growing on the valley sides is they help stabilize the slopes and therefore minimize rock slides down this mountainside, which might affect the road below. So there's another benefit of planting forests on the edge of the land. Final point that you want to say is the same as sheep farming. The land is not going to be very valuable because it's very steep, and therefore it's you want something like trees in the long run is profitable, but because it takes a long time, you want to put your trees on land that's not very valuable. Okay, lastly, we might want to talk about energy companies, why this landscape suits it. Well, we've got lots of arêtes up here and high land with a lot of wind, because we've got over 1,000 feet above sea level. Therefore, winds are going to be high, and therefore you'd want to pick a spot high up on your map and give a good reference for that. If you pick a sort of a mountain top like we see here, you can also say that you get 360-degree wind, which would be perfect for the wind turbines. Furthermore, because they're out of the way and they're not near any settlements, you're not going to get any conflict. If you have a loch that has a dam on it, like we can see here, you can pick out that and say it's suitable for hydroelectricity because it's a very wet area, because it's the mountains, and also it's out of the way, so building a dam is not going to create conflict.